Times are a-changing in Northampton. Plans afoot that will alter the face of our town forever. New buildings are springing up all around the town, not least those forming part of the proposed new enterprise zone. No doubt you'll find out more about them over the coming months. But we want to tell you about something far more interesting. The inspiration for a fantastic new heritage gateway into the town, incorporating our long-awaited new train station. However, the station is not the first building to inhabit this well-trodden site. It has been occupied from as early as 700 AD by the Danes and Saxons, who built the earliest fortifications. But you might be surprised to discover that Northampton was also once home to a mighty Norman castle, which once stood proudly right here, looming high over the Nen, as described in Leland's itinerary of 1536. The castle standeth hard by the west gate and hath a large keep. The area of the residue is very large, and bulwarks of earth be made afore the castle gate. Long ago, in the dim and distant past, the Normans oversaw the first great redevelopment of Northampton. In the late 11th century, Simon de Senlis, Earl of Northampton, was ordered to build a castle by William the Conqueror. To fortify the increasingly significant Norman town. The land alongside the original river course was extensively remodelled to form a huge array of defensive earthworks and ditches. The first structures may have been built from timber, but were eventually rebuilt in local ironstone and sandstone, forming a high bailey wall around the perimeter and an imposing entrance barbican, the North Gate. This was the main entrance into the castle, providing passage across the surrounding defensive ditch. It would have been heavily guarded, making for a very daunting introduction to the castle. Here we enter into the outer ward or common area. Life inside the castle would have been busy and bustling with various characters going about their business. Here we have the jailer's house. The jail itself was contained along the bailey wall and within the round tower, as are the adjacent barracks for the infantrymen and armoury. There's a large muster hall for feasts, and there would also be cottages and workshops for the various craftsmen. Blacksmiths, carpenters, a mason's yard. The well would provide drinking water, and there is also a stable block, kennels and mews for horses, hunting dogs and any livestock. The little passage in the bailey wall beyond is the postern gate. This doorway provided direct access to the river for residents to do their laundry or collect freshly ground flour from the watermill. It's the only part of the castle that remains today, rebuilt by the Victorians on Black Lion Hill in the wall alongside the station. The bailey walls were thick and high and accessed from several towers with tight, dark spiral staircases leading all the way up. Note how the staircase winds clockwise as we ascend. This would prevent predominantly right-handed raiders from using their swords, but allow descending defenders to strike freely. From up here, our infantrymen could protect the castle and subdue any attempts to attack with deadly crossbow fire and trebuchets launching rock missiles from atop the towers. With sentries posted regularly along the wall, it would take a very cunning raider to make it to the walls undetected, never mind getting inside. Here we can look down the murder holes in the barbican, from which defenders could shower boiling oil or water over any unwanted visitors. Now we're heading into the inner ward, where we find all the most important accommodation separate from the common folk outside. These are the servants' quarters, always at beck and call and ready to work. In the kitchens and bakehouse, cooking up a feast for their noble employers and guests. Next door are the Queen's private chapel and apartments with their intricate windows. And there is the Great Hall, the main assembly building where all the official business of state took place. Beyond the Great Hall is the vast and impressive keep, the main defensive stronghold of the castle and the ultimate place of refuge for the king if ever the castle should come under attack. Norman and later Plantagenet kings developed Northampton into a significant centre of power. The castle's central position in England enabled kings to use it to overawe their mighty barons. But it's in the Great Hall that all the important action took place. For 250 years, from 1131 to 1380, a king would parley or talk with his barons and bishops here, the forerunner of our modern parliament. Henry II held the first Great Council in 1157. But it was also a place for special occasions, feasts and entertaining, as King Henry I celebrated Easter here in 1122. The king would enter the Great Hall from the rear via the long and great chambers. This is where he would come to prepare, before taking his place upon the throne in front of his loyal or not so loyal barons. But perhaps the most important event to take place under this roof was the trial of Thomas Becket, the Archbishop of Canterbury, in 1164. He rode to the castle each day of his trial from St Andrew's Priory and carried his own cross into the hall on the last day. Becket left the castle before sentence was pronounced and returned to St Andrew's Priory, from where just before dawn the next day he fled dressed as a monk through the town's north gate to Lincoln and eventually to France. It was a timely escape, as if found guilty, Becket would most likely have been thrown into the dungeons of the keep, shackled and manacled to the thick enclosing walls until the day of his execution. William the Lion, King of Scotland, was another notable prisoner here in 1174. But that's not all that happened in this building. The castle acquired the trappings of a royal palace under Henry I, and was further improved in the 13th century to house Henry III's queen in comfort. It came under siege during the Barons' Wars under King John and Henry III. Between 1199 and 1216, King John visited the castle at least 30 times and spent some £300 on repairing and strengthening the buildings. He even moved the royal treasury here in 1205. Indeed, Northampton was noted as one of the 4 royal castles given up by John at the signing of the Magna Carta in 1215. Upstairs, and hopefully out of harm's way, would be the king's private chambers and his chapel. But as we continue right up to the top of this lofty tower, we can now absorb the incredible view over the castle and countryside. The relatively low-lying topography allowed them to see for miles. And from here, the king could relax and enjoy a jousting tournament in the Outer Bailey. Such would have been the scene in days of yore. Rather different than the scene today, we're sure you'll agree. Just imagine if the castle was still here, nestled among the existing and new landmarks like the Express Lifts Tower, Franklin's Gardens, Sixfields, and those other preserved gems. All Saints Church, the Holy Sepulchre, known as St Seps, and of course St Peter's, the castle's chapel. Unfortunately, after a relatively short period of prominence, Northampton Castle was systematically erased from existence. It repeatedly changed hands during the 13th century Civil War and fell into disrepair. The last Parliament was held here in November 1380 under Richard II, and the castle ceased to function effectively as a strategic stronghold from 1390 onwards during the reign of Edward III. Only the jail and Great Hall for sessions of court were retained under the stewardship of the county sheriff. It was here that the Northamptonshire witches' trial was held in 1612. Furthermore, after the English Civil War, Charles II ordered the castle be slighted due to its support for the Roundheads, after which it passed out of royal possession and was left to ruin. The Hazelrig family eventually purchased the site, under whom it became a cherry orchard, before finally ending up in the hands of the London and North West Railway Company in 1876. Alas, our once glorious castle is but a memory today, a ghost of a history to be celebrated and remembered before it's completely steamrolled by the juggernaut of progress. This presentation has been brought to you by the Friends of Northampton Castle. We believe there's still much archaeology to be done both on the station site and up by the castle mound, where we hope to uncover the remains of the royal apartments and Great Hall. If you want to discover more about this and the proposed Heritage Gateway highlighting the castle, St Peter's and an even earlier Saxon palace, please visit our website at northamptoncastle.com. Thank you for your time. We hope you enjoyed the tour.
Northamptonshire, it gives me huge pleasure to be invited here to open Castle Park today. And I was given a little bit of a briefing about what to say, so if I bore you too much on the history, I apologise. But I think that it is so important that here in Northampton we cherish and we celebrate the long, long history. Northampton has a really, really rich heritage, and we've been very poor, in my view, at highlighting it and enjoying it. This year, we've been able to mark the 350th anniversary of the Great Fire of Northampton. And one of the key messages that came out of that was that the town showed huge resilience and enormous efficiency in rebuilding what was a complete desolation of the town, with over 80% of the buildings destroyed in a matter of 3 hours, such that in 15 years later there was a very vibrant town here. But today we are really concentrating on our medieval heritage. We're standing on the site of one of the most formidable castles ever built in England. Northampton Castle was the largest town castle when it was at its prime. It was originally, the construction began at the end of the 11th century, so about 1090. It was finished in 1130, and it became a real centre of power in this country, in England. From its outset, it was the place that the king would come. Henry II convened a great council in 1157. There were numerous parliaments held within the castle until 1381. King John, bad King John, moved his treasury here in 1205. I think that was to protect it, because he was always losing money, if you remember. But more importantly, in 1164, Thomas à Becket was held, his trial was held in Northampton. I'm very pleased to see the blue sign for Peter the Saracen. King John, in 1205, employed Peter the Saracen, who was a highly skilled engineer and crossbow maker, and he resided in the castle that would have been built here, that was here. And we know that he was of North African or Middle Eastern origin, and I am really pleased to say that it is believed that he's one of the first Muslims to live in England and resided here in Northampton, something we should celebrate. Following a huge fire, not the Great Fire of Northampton, but a huge fire which destroyed the royal apartments, which would have been on the mound behind us in 1318, the castle's prominence started to wane. But not completely, because Henry VI came here and stayed here in 1460 at the height of the Wars of the Roses. And the Battle of Northampton that then followed, which was fought in the Water Meadows next to Delapre Abbey in 1460, saw Henry VI lose to Edward IV. And as was always the case, if you lose, you then get locked up in the castle, and he came back here. But that was again, we tend to not in English history think about anything pre-1485, because that's when the Henry Tudor defeated Richard III at Market Bosworth. So actually this place was right at the heart of medieval history. The castle remained an important part of the town's infrastructure right up to the Civil War, where Northampton was firmly for Parliament rather than for Crown. And after the restoration of Charles II in 1660, he ordered its destruction so it couldn't be used again to fight against the Crown. But they didn't do a very good job. They only got rid of a bit of it, such that the castle was still here at the time that the Victorians wanted to build the railway. And it was in 1857 that they destroyed the Western Wall, which ran down to the river and the West Bridge, and built the station. And then finally the rest of the castle was knocked down when they built the sidings sitting below us and St Andrew's Road. What is important is that we celebrate the fact that it's here. So often you walk from the centre of town to the station and you look down at the pavement to avoid the crisp packets and the McDonald's cup, and you fail to look up and see what's around you. What is around you is this rich heritage which we need to celebrate. And I would like today to give special thanks to Suzanne Holmes and her team, who've been the project manager and the driving force behind delivering this fantastic pocket park here at Castle Park, and creating what is now a very vibrant amenity for the Springborough community. And it gives me huge pleasure now to open the park formally.
Brilliant, thank you everyone. So now we're going to officially open Castle Park. Should we get a countdown? Everybody clap. 3, 2, 1. Woo! So now going to hand over to Councillor James Petter, the Deputy Leader of West Northamptonshire Council.
Right, good morning everyone. Are we all still warm? It is not festive days. I tried to arrange a bit of sunshine, but it didn't happen, so please keep warm. Right, as already mentioned, I'm the Deputy Leader of West Northamptonshire Council, and it's a real honour to welcome you all here today to open this fantastic new park. This space that stands as a testament to the community vision and partnership and perseverance, because it's taken a while, but here we are, which is absolutely amazing. This project began with the Springborough's neighbourhood plan. Residents made it clear that they wanted an outdoor space in the heart of their community. We listened, and from that plan grew the idea for this park. It became part of the town investment plan, supported by the town's fund money, Section 106 contributions and capital investment from the council. A great example of what can be achieved when partners and residents pull together. And we couldn't but deliver this without the expertise of our partners, so I'd like to thank the local contractors, Jenkins Weir, that brought the plans to life with real care and professionalism. And also while the vision from DBP, which are landscape architects who actually shaped and designed into something practical and inspiring, as you can see around you. Consultation and feedback make sure that your voices were heard and your ideas were included. This isn't just a council project, it's a community project. So I'm really pleased it's come together like it has. And what a park it is. It's a beautiful community garden, so you'll see over in the corner. They are going to be cared for by a local group. A heritage timeline making the scale of the old Northampton Castle that once stood here, so you can sort of get your idea of what the size of the castle would have been.
Yeah.
And of course the new castle themed play area behind you, which I have to say is being used extremely nicely at the moment if you look at all the families on there, where children can storm the turrets, befriend the dragons and let their imaginations run wild. I'd love to have a go at myself, but I don't think health and safety will let me get up there. I'll probably get stuck. The park also features a striking mural, which unfortunately you can't see as we sit here, but if you go down walk around the other side along the wall here, you've got the mural. That was delivered in partnership with Fermi Wood's Contemporary Art and backed by the Arts Council funding and brought to life by Studio, so please go and have a look at that later. An artist collective who worked closely with the local residents. It's more than just art, yet again it's a collaboration of a rich history of this area. So today, we're not just opening a park, we're celebrating the spirit of collaboration and the pride that makes this community special. So, my sincere thanks go to everyone involved, from funders, partners and residents who shaped every step, and a special thanks to Suzanne and Mike, whose tireless efforts helped make this possible. So this is your park, enjoy it, protect it please, look after it, and make sure it's a place of pride for generations to come. Thank you very much.